Good evening and welcome to episode 2 here of season 2 of the Pack Homer podcast. Tonight I'm with my buddies Adam and Wes, and we got a special guest, Mr. Alec Makarewicz, which we're going to call AMAC the rest of this pod because that's a little bit much to. I couldn't even spell it right. I had a hard time getting AMAC on the pod. He asked me, did I send the invite? I said, yeah, I sent it, and then I realized I spelled your name wrong. So I'm sorry, AMAC. You probably get that a lot.
Happens all the time. Yeah, happens all the time.
Appreciate you coming on. How's life treating you right now? What are you up to?
Pretty good. Just training 4 to 5 days a week. Just getting after it. Had tonsil surgery a few weeks back, so that knocked me out for a week, a little over a week. But glad to be back, and haven't really gotten much of a break since Omaha.
So, hey Matt, we're going to talk a little bit about last season's magical run. I know you were on a pod earlier with Giglio last summer. Obviously, probably a lot of our listeners and a lot of North Carolinians probably have some interest in how you ended up at NC State, coming over from ECU. But we're just going to kind of see where it takes us. So, AMAC comes to NC State last year, hits 378, 24 home runs, 25 doubles, 98 hits, 84 RBI, 195 total bases, set the record, I believe, he can correct me if I'm wrong, for the total number of baseball games played in Division I baseball. Aren't you the current leader in that?
Yeah, the COVID era definitely helped with that. Gave me a few extra games, somewhere a little over 260, I think. College games, not including summer ball, so I played 3 summer leagues on top of that. A lot of games.
A lot of games. So, obviously, probably maybe you talk about in the portal era about additions to your team, to get a guy like you into our program. I mean, you carried us a long way last year. You and Penny and Butters and some other transfers, and obviously some guys that have been with us too, Eli and Cozart, and a lot of guys went into that. Obviously, I know you're not taking all the credit, but I talked to you a little bit earlier this week about your decision to come to NC State. Really, quite honestly, how much do you want to talk about and not talk about when you come on the pod? So where you were at in your career, I guess 22 years old at the time, AMAC, what led up to you coming to NC State? And obviously it's probably a little bit more, there are a little more eyes on it because you left ECU, which was a great program. You're a graduate of. I know your soon-to-be wife is also a Pirate graduate. What brought you to Raleigh?
Yeah, so obviously, like you just said, I stuck it out there for 4 years and graduated. Like when I signed that letter of intent out of high school, that was my plan, and I've had some bumps and bruises along the way, but you know I earned everything that I had there, and a lot of people don't really understand that I graduated. So let's just to clear that up, I'd like to say that. But yeah, my fiance also graduated here, both her parents. So I got a lot of ECU ties. So I knew that I would get some hate for obviously leaving and going to state. But yeah, it wasn't really state all the way. I kind of I really didn't make the decision to transfer until the season ended. My last season at ECU, I kind of had heard from my fall meetings with scouts, because I've always dreamed of playing professional baseball. They'd say, we think that you could do more if we, changed your swing and stuff. With your size and your power, you've shown consistent numbers, power numbers every year, but it's just not, at the level we want it to be. So, I had just that thought. I didn't know exactly what I needed to do to correct my swing yet, but I just knew I had to do something different. And, other things have worked for other players, like at that program. They've still gone and had professional careers, but it wasn't working for me. So I figured I got to try something different. And yeah, the first, like I said on the Giglio podcast, the first 2 schools that reached out to me once I hit the portal were Florida. So Sully called me, and then Kentucky. So the pitching coach that actually used to coach at ECU from Kentucky was the one that had reached out to me. And it's crazy that those are the 2 schools that reached out to me first, and that's who we played in Omaha. So I think and they were in our side of the bracket, which was mind blowing to me. but that's kind of how I ended up at State. And then, I didn't take a visit to State until after I'd kind of been talking to Florida, Kentucky, and Avon was just something else. Like he was kind of like what I was hoping for. Like you went in there, and you just it just felt like a home, and he welcomed my fiance and her family through the office with the coaches, and you know he was friendly to everybody, and the rest of the coaching staff. Hart, I talked to Hart heavily on because he's in charge of a lot of the hitting philosophy on what I wanted to do, and he basically said, I mean, that's kind of what we do here. So, um, you know, I had a feeling I was going to be able to swing the bat a lot, and eventually just committed there, and that's that.
What
So
was that? I was
go ahead,
just
Adam.
curious. What was that? What was that time? What was that timeline like, AMAC, from the time you decided that you were going to transfer from ECU or enter the portal, and then the time you committed NC State? What was that time frame
So
like?
that's kind of like going back to what I said about the draft. So the draft, I was waiting because I knew I had a chance because I had seen myself over the years on like prospect lists for the draft. So I figured like someone could call me. So I waited for that first because I really didn't know if I was even going to have to enter the portal, then sign, then figure it out. So I was just waiting for the draft to happen. So I think it was probably it was like the last day. It was like right after the draft. There was like the last day to submit the portal. So, it was a tough decision. Like I almost like thought I was like, man, like, do I really want to go through moving? I don't want to move away from Greenville. Like which I didn't know I was my fiance at the time she was just my girlfriend. I didn't want to move away because we're so close and I'm so close with her parents. They're like family to me, and eventually they're gonna be family soon. But yeah, like I didn't want to move, and I was honestly debating just looking for jobs because I had graduated like I set out to do. Um, but I don't know, something just something inside me was like, you can't quit like on your dream for baseball. So you know, let's open up your options, see who bites after the draft happened.
So to clear the air, there was no NC State come up with 100 grand. Maybe
Oh no.
called you up at the end of the season. Said what you doing next year if you don't get drafted.
Mm,
It was kind of like I don't even know if I might be working on Monday. And
yeah, there's a lot of narratives that people push out there that get back to me, and it's just like hysterical. Like we joke around about at the house, like some of the things people come up with, like the coach at ECU bought me a car and I left, like nobody got me a car, and like just other stuff like just people come up to me and say, you did what you had to do, NIL is a big deal and stuff. I'm like, well, I really didn't leave for a check, so I just not it's not always about the NIL for everybody. They just want to go try something different, and state even if state had the money to give to me, like I wasn't gonna get that highest amount of money that they might give to one of the highest prospects because I wasn't like an All-American transferring yet. Like I was a career 280 hitter there, and there wasn't much promise to be what I did. It was more of like I had that confidence that if I try something different, it might be a great year, but maybe not. Like the numbers you read out earlier were like insane. Hearing that, you would never think that would be the turnaround that I had, but just those rumors are crazy.
And
yeah,
those numbers are crazy. You're right about that too.
So like
That's
absolutely.
if I would
awesome.
have transferred from state now to somewhere else, like an SEC or some other school with a heavy NIL, um, like probably yes, you might hear some crazy 100,000, 50,000 numbers, but nothing like that was what I was getting. I didn't have this free money to go around and spend. I was barely affording rent still, so
Yeah, I think that's one of the things a lot of people don't realize too when you like compare college baseball to college football. Like the numbers are so much smaller. Like you could have been an everyday starter, at ECU playing football and probably transferred to state and not even know if you're going to start and maybe, you know, got got a decent sized paycheck. I think we see that every day in football, but in baseball that's kind of certainly not the case anyway. And then, like you said, you became an All American at NC State, um, and wanted to get in that a little bit too, Mac. So when me and you were talking, you spoke so highly of Coach Avent, Bo Rob, and Coach Hart, and what they did to kind of turn you from a 280 hitter into a 380 hitter. You told me, and I know you said it before, that you always you had confidence that you could be a great college hitter, but for whatever reasons, it just hadn't clicked for you to become what you became last year. Want to let you talk a little bit about those guys. I told you before we got on tonight that you probably could give the best recruiting pitch of anyone, because you've kind of been there, done that with our current staff.
So yeah, I mean, like I said, like to you earlier, Hart and Borov they really don't get enough, credit. Like I can never give them enough credit for what they did because Hart's the mastermind behind, the whole hitting philosophy there and what they've done with the facilities that they've had, is just absolutely incredible. Like the amount of times that, they've made a trip to Omaha and just what they're coaching is just something that,
You
is
think
heavy
it's
on
you
my
think
heart every day.
you think it's more about the coaching than the facilities? Is that what you're insinuating?
For sure, yeah. Yeah, I didn't, because like
Wait,
walking through
what?
the facilities, I knew it was like an ACC school. I really like. I mean, I did like the locker room, like the big square locker room. Like you'd see everybody in there. It was wide open, and the training room, was really nice. And they have a lot of really good resources. So I had all the resources that I needed, but for knowing that they'd been to Omaha and the success they've had in that program, I was kind of surprised by some of the facilities that because like when Coastal won it, I had visited them out of high school, um, and they had just an insane facility, like big league locker room, like, and that was just from that Cinderella story. So I just didn't really know what to expect going over there. But yeah, so yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about Bo Rob. So yeah, like they really don't get enough credit with like the hitting that he did with me, that nobody really saw. Um, I was frustrated with taking pitches, at ECU a lot. I took a lot of pitches and walked a lot in the last regional we went in, but and struck out less. But I didn't really score a ton from first base, because I wasn't the fastest guy, so I wasn't scoring from first to home. So that was frustrating for me, just not being able to drive the baseball on a first pitch strike or a 3-0 or 3-1 count, even sometimes random counts. But that was the one thing I was frustrated with. And but mechanically, Bo Rob cleaned up my swing too, because I'm not perfect, like, and no hitter's perfect. They have their swing mechanic flaws here and there. But Bo Rob saw it within the first week I stepped foot there. He watched me, just he let me take BP and watched me and watched how I did things before he went in there and coached me. And he told me, he said, "Man, you got some holes in your swing, but we gonna clean it right up." And I started laughing. I'm like, I wonder what he's got in store for me, what he sees. So he's clearly got a good eye. So does Hart, because they both talk about it, and they spend it's their lives. They really spend countless hours studying hitting videos and using all the new technology that's out there to translate it to what swing is going to work for this guy. I think for me, it's not a one shoe fits all hitters. All hitters are different. Power hitters versus high contact hitters. So I think they do a great job. Explaining that to the new guys, because I only had 1 year to kind of make something click, and the way they explained things just, I don't know, it just clicked in my head and made a lot of sense to be able to make those adjustments.
So, and Wesley and Adam, you cut me off anytime you want.
No,
But
only thing I was going to say is about that point about AMAC talking about the metrics and stuff is, all that data that you can collect now is great, but if you can't do anything with it, what good is it, right? Like, I mean, if you don't have the pieces to help analyze it and make some changes or recommendations out of it, then what good is having all that technology, right? So I
right.
think Cal mentioned you could help be a recruiting video force, record recruiting video force. I mean, that says a lot, about that, what they were able to pick up and do with you in that short amount of time. I mean, obviously it's a testament to the work that you put in to make those changes effective,
Hmm.
but just
But yeah.
to be able to see that is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I mean, clearly, like I worked hard every year, even at ECU. I did what I was told to do, and honestly, a lot more on top of that. Like just hitting it at every night with somebody trying to figure things out. Like I still did that, in the past. It's not like I just decided to work hard my last year, and that's just to clear that up. If people want to say that, oh, he decided to work hard, flip that on me too. Because and kind of some proof that I was a hard worker at ECU was I won two of their Omaha challenges, the individual, in 3 years. So you can't really take stuff away like that from somebody, to show how hard I was a worker every year of college. And you don't play 260 games and not have a serious injury if you're not taking care of yourself the whole time.
Absolutely. So when you walk into the locker room, I got a lot of questions about now. With obviously I mentioned those names earlier, but Pennington and Butterworth and Josh Hogue and a handful of guys that were transfers for us. That I think that's a big part now of being the manager of the program, the captain of the ship, like Coach Avent. How long does it take? How long did it take to kind of mesh? And then to add on to that, when did you actually think, because obviously ECU is a great program. They're top 25 every year. They're hosting regionals. Omaha's always been the goal there in Greenville too. So you've been around winning programs. It's not like you transferred in from a cellar dweller. How long does it take? Did it take for those ingredients to kind of mix maybe in the fall? And when did you think we may can take this team to Omaha?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I had a lot of confidence coming in somewhere new, and with just my experience, like I played summer ball, so I've had to kind of like come into new groups and kind of get along with the guys. So I'd done it before in summer ball, so I wasn't like, that's kind of how I went about it. Like I didn't really think much about like a rivalry, or this kid might hate this school or something. Like I just went in and I just was a good guy to everybody, and they were open arms. Especially I think it helped that they had a lot of older guys with experience or that were there, like Whitaker and Highfill. Like they had so much experience in college, and guys like that coming in their last year aren't gonna, you know they're not gonna let stuff slide, if someone doesn't get along or something, like even if that were to happen. But like there was nothing bad. There was no bad blood when I came in. A lot of the guys really, they remembered playing me, but it wasn't really much of like anything crazy.
So when I want to talk a little bit about our roster now. So you're going through the fall. I think I heard on Julio's show last year you hit like 400 in the fall. So you kind of knew like I'm going to be in a position to hit in the middle of the lineup for this team that has aspirations of going places. Um, I want to talk a little bit about some of the current guys that we have now. You hit from both sides of the plate, so you probably matched up with probably everybody in that bullpen. I heard you also talk on that podcast about D-Rock and dude, the guys we got coming back this year. And I won't make you give us too much information, AMAC.
I probably
But
know just as much as y'all right
but
now.
like I think Duden came in like I don't think Duden was throwing 98 in high school. Like we'll go with Jacob Duden first. Like that guy growing up as a freshman last year. Like how much did that guy grow from the fall to the spring to like unhittable? Like did you like maybe take him yard a couple of times in the fall and
I think I might have had a few hits off of him, but and when that was when he, well, first off, I didn't really like notice dude until after, like how explosive his stuff was, until after, I think it was winter break. We came back, and it was like, I don't know if it was just the timing of like they because clearly they worked on mechanics there, and they put guys on programs and stuff. But like I don't know, like the ball was just jumping out of his hand, and it was almost deceiving because like you look at him, he's not like 6'8" or like something crazy. He's just such a explosive athlete, and I feel like he figured out how to move or something. Um, but once I saw that, I was like, well, he's gonna be a dude. Like right away, I was like, oh, all right, he'll be one of our big pieces this year if he can stay healthy. Because as a freshman, you just hope, all right, I hope this kid is disciplined and takes care of his arm because it could go just as quick as it came in. So that's kind of one thing I was like worried about with him, but I knew he had the stuff once I saw it.
How about D Rock? I mean, that guy. Like, I think last year we picked about midway through the year. We're like, he was my kind of pick to click when his ERA was like 17. So I guess that was one one I picked
Yeah,
right. But I was like, this guy's a dude. Like, I don't know if there's something different about him. Um,
something crazy about D Rock, because he wasn't even on the roster, I believe, the year before for the conference tournament in Charlotte,
wow.
and he comes back next year and he's literally the best righty reliever in the country. Like I don't know, it was incredible. But like a lot of the guys I feel like that were around him weren't super surprised because they knew how good his stuff was. But it's crazy how something like that could click for him.
So from a
Hmm.
leadership perspective, do you kind of enjoy? And we just talked about pitchers. I know you probably spend a lot more time with hitters. Young guys like say a Luke Nixon, a Jake Bechtel, some guys that hadn't played Division I baseball. Do you kind of picture yourself as one of the being a role model to those guys? Is that important to you to even think about that, or you just kind of let your work lead by example kind of guy?
Yeah, I did that on another pack interview. Like that's lead by example is kind of my style. Everyone's got different styles, but I'm not trying to be that rah rah guy or hey everybody look at me. I'm this leader. I feel like if you look up to me, you'll come up to me and you'll ask me, what I think about things, and or you'll notice that I'm doing things the right way, and I feel like that just I like kind of just going unseen, um, the way I do things.
All right, Wesley, you've been quiet too long. You got to ask a question, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, and congratulations on the engagement, AMAC. I also have a bride from East Carolina.
Thank you.
There's special, special women there. Um, so I mean, for me, what interests me the most is just the culture in the locker rooms between Coach Godwin and Coach Avent. I mean, was it? I mean, for me, from the outside in, I would think that it's relatively similar. But again, that's where I guess my question comes to you: what that culture is like from locker room to locker room.
I mean, clearly, there's some similarities, because a lot of people ask me about, what's the difference between Cliff and Avon, and like I get that question a lot, and it's just like, they both, baseball is like, their lives, they've they've been on in these programs and been managers for like such a long time now, and um, there's still differences in their coaching styles, in a way, but in culture, being like at ECU in the American Conference, they're really big on pushing we got to win the 40 games because, those every game matters more, especially their midweeks and their out of conference at ECU. So there's a lot more, I would say, pressure in the culture at ECU, because you can't really drop many games like high RPI games, and at state it's pushed that the ACC, you gotta win those games, and at one point we didn't realize we were even gonna host the regional, at state last year, like we were, because we hadn't won a midweek game, and but man, when we got in conference it was like we beat all the big dogs. We beat Clemson, Carolina, Duke, swept Wake Forest. Like I don't know, they had their focus on different things, because being in different conferences is a big deal, and that's something I was looking for when I transferred, but to move up a level because I wasn't moving to the pro level, so I'm like, all right, what's the next level if I'm gonna try something to prove that I can be successful at. Um, but yeah, culture wise, I mean, they know how to win baseball games, everywhere. They clearly have been consistent programs. So hats off to that.
So earlier before we started recording, we were talking about strength training and some of the areas you're working on now. How much of a focus was that when you came into NC State to get stronger? I mean, you talked about the mechanics, that you were working on. How much from a strength training standpoint did you focus on the beginning of last year?
I didn't really have many different strength goals in my mind when I was leaving because I knew I was one of the stronger guys like in the program that I was coming from, so like I wasn't really like too worried about that. Um like there wasn't really much difference. Like I think there was some different things with running, like, but the lifting programs were pretty similar. It can only get so different from program to program from what I've heard and seen, and when we travel around, and you can see when you go to some facilities, like they have their programs up. So I'm always pretty curious to check out what everybody else is doing with their guys for strength. But nothing really crazy different. There was some less running around, the less 300s around the track. Like we did a bunch of those at ECU before some lifts. Like we didn't do as many of those at State, but for the guys that were really fast guys naturally, they dialed in on it. But I knew I wasn't gonna steal a ton of bases for State, so I really wasn't too worried about running. I think I stole one base last year. So running, I wasn't too worried about going to State. Learning how to run faster, especially my 5th year. There's so little time to work on that.
I'm still a strong advocate that NC State establishes or purchases a meat wagon. Isn't that what Campbell calls their
The
mobile
travel.
strength
travel.
chaining?
That thing's cool. That thing's cool. I saw that
It's
video
so
when it
cool.
first came out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've also heard rumors that I took steroids at State. So because I gained some weight from not doing as much conditioning on my end, but I was still in the weight room, so it's easy to put on an extra 10, 15 pounds. I think I put on 15 pounds when I left.
You're also a grown man though now, Mac.
That too.
You're
Yeah, I'm getting
24.
older. My digestive system must be slowing down a hair.
So, talking a little bit more, along that route. Now in pro ball, so you got an opportunity with the White Sox, hit over 300 again. That's one of the things I kind of noticed when I was looking over your kind of career stats, Mac. Like the change that you made at NC State. I mean, you kind of explained it to me the other day, kind of in baseball terms, as being pretty simplistic, the thought process of what the adjustment you made. But, even you mentioned it earlier, like you never hit 300 at ECU. You were a 280 hitter. You hit 300 in pro ball last year after hitting, right at 380 for NC State. So when you go off to pro ball, now you're in pro ball. I think you told me you were going to camp in probably early March. At your age, I know that's obviously a big thing that gets tossed around in the draft. I mean, I think obviously if you put up the numbers you put up last year as a 20 or 21-year-old, probably get drafted pretty high. So now, age is going to get used against you again. You're trying to climb the ladder. At the pro level, you're there as a hitter. So what does it look like now? Like when you go to camp, I mean, do you maybe you're not getting as much attention as the first round draft pick? Like how is pro ball different than what you just walked out of in college, now as a guy that was an undrafted free agent?
So yeah, obviously the draft happened, and I knew. I pretty much just heard the whole draft, like his age. That's what people would tell my advisor. Like his age. I mean, and clearly I was healthy, so they couldn't really knock me for injuries or anything. So yeah, luckily the White Sox, you know, took a chance on me and took me as a free agent. And the biggest difference that I see, is like the stuff. Like everyone's got great stuff, but like I started at the single A level in Kannapolis, and like not everyone has great command. It's at the lower levels. I feel like that's what everyone talks about. Pitcher's command gets better, but the stuff doesn't get insanely better. Unless you're probably like a Paul Skeens, like that's not something you're gonna see every day. But for the majority, I feel like I hear a lot about like the guys that can just command all their pitches the higher level you get.
So uh, going back to this year's team, this is another thing I chatted with you about. I'm sure our listeners would like to hear. I think you mentioned earlier, hey, I don't have a whole ton of insight, but we kind of got a really young roster. You kind of mentioned to me when we were talking back and forth, AMAC, that we'll figure out how to hit. The stuff that we have, pitching wise, obviously, I don't know that we've gone into a season in a long time that I was so confident in what we had staff wise, from a pitching standpoint. Um, what do you kind of feel like, for this team? I guess you've been around a lot of the pitchers that are coming back. We got a lot of new faces that are going to be in the lineup every day. Um, how do you feel about this 2025 pack roster that we're going to put out? And I kind of feel like you're still going to follow them pretty close.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna follow them. Hard not to after how much I enjoyed last year. Um, I'm excited. I'm really excited about the pitching, obviously, because we got a lot of our guys back, and I haven't even seen any of the new guys throw yet, and I already know we've got the returners that we've got. So, um, but hitting wise, like I said, it's definitely a younger group, but I think it's another 20 new guys that they got. Like last year, it was 20 new guys coming in, and I figured out real quick, like, I wasn't worried about how our hitting was going to be, like the first few weeks, how I saw everybody swung it. So I've been around the facility a little bit and seen some of the guys' swings and stuff. And, I've seen, Bo Rob getting after it again with some of the guys and Hart in there, making sure guys are doing your routines and stuff. And I'm sure they're communicating with them what they're seeing. But, the guys that come in, the highly recruited guys, I think that one kid from Florida is dang it, what's his name from Florida? The
Tyler
outfielder,
Head.
Head.
Ty Head. Yeah, he actually is from my high school district, so I'm excited to see what he does. He looks the part. Clearly he looks like a stud. So we'll see. As he gets more college ABs, how his talent and his work ethic connects. So. But yeah, I'm interested to see, like you guys talked about on your last podcast, like the power numbers that we have. I feel like hopefully nobody tries to chase, what me and Pennington did last year, to like try to prove something. That's one thing to focus on. It's just gonna happen because when everyone was hitting home runs, like they weren't really trying to. You try to hit doubles and they turn into home runs. So I'm excited to see which guys are just driving the ball in the gap to gap.
So when you talked about uh, the young guys coming in and this year's roster, one of the things I think one of the points I made last week is, and you've been around some guys I'm sure that have gone high in the draft at ECU too. Like, what is that like in the fall when your staff's really good? Does that do a lot to like the hitter's confidence when you got to go? Like I'd hate to be, you know, facing Duden, D-Rock, Willitson. I don't know if Willitson's back throwing yet, but Coop, Marone, Dom every single day. Um,
Yeah.
does that kind of weigh on you? I guess let's go back to freshman year at ECU, AMAC, when you come out of facing 85 to 88, most nights in high school, and you got to go. Like if you're a Tyler Head
I
now.
had to face Gavin Williams, one of my first scrimmages, and he's the starting pitcher for the Guardians now, in the big leagues. But did pretty well. But yeah, I just like I wouldn't let it kill your confidence facing guys like that because they have the experience, and it's tough when you're a new guy because the coaches haven't seen what, I mean, they've seen you, but they haven't seen like enough to know like how consistent you're gonna be. So like it's hard. The having the confidence is hard, especially as a new guy against facing guys like that, I'm sure. So I think the biggest thing would be, just keep swinging. Like you're gonna get better facing those guys. Like these at bats in the fall really don't they don't count towards anything. So, that should kind of bring a level of like, all right, like relax, relax a little bit in there. Don't stress too much and just keep trying to get better.
All right, Adam Wesley. We'll go to a lightning round here in a minute and we'll just ask AMAC anything we can get out of him before
I,
we let
I
him
was
jump.
I was going to say one thing, AMAC, I was interested in hearing. I mean, growing up as a switch hitter, obviously you've been uh, swinging from both sides of the plate for a while. I was just curious, in your mind, like growing up, you said you had aspirations of playing, professional baseball. What, in your mind, who have you looked up to or tried to model your game after over the years when you think back on, some role models that you saw in the sport that you liked?
Yeah, I mean, I really like Jeter. I was always on a bandwagon. Like whoever was the All Stars that year, like there was never really one specific person that comes to mind. Like I enjoyed just watching Sports Center Top 10 like growing up. Like that was like my thing. Like I never really sat through a whole game. Like I didn't really ever do that a ton. And I would play like 2K and play with the Yankees around like what 2008. Like just I don't know. That's kind of how I grew up just watching. I feel like watching the highlights and stuff, made me really want to just be in. Hopefully, one day get the chance to be in those situations to make those highlights.
Wes.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me and Cal, and one of the one of the great things about the state of North Carolina is so many colleges and universities so close to one another, and I feel like you having the opportunity here and other podcasts or other areas to tell your story on how that played out, and all the misinformation that was out there, that it had to be so rewarding, with the season that you ended up having at NC State, and then ultimately making it to Omaha, which is something that, of course, ECU can only dream about because they've never been. Had to be just the best, the best scenario possible.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh gosh,
like last year, like it paid. Like my decision paid off clearly.
Right.
We made it. I mean, obviously we lost the two games, really close games. But you know, I feel like there's this pedestal put on Omaha that it adds to a lot of unnecessary pressure on the players. And I feel like even like especially when you've been there, like it's you notice the difference, like where it's like, all right, like it's a special place. But you're still playing the same game, so you just got to go out there and do your job, and
I,
have that little extra focus on just everyone doing your job. And it can be seen as selfish sometimes. When you do your job and you focus on yourself and getting better. I feel like that gets kind of caught between different programs where it can be seen as selfish. But when you focus on what you're doing, and you're you're in control of what you can control, like you're actually being a team player if you're doing the right things. So, that's gonna get you there.
I don't think anybody has to. You don't have to explain to anybody who might be listening to us, say Mac, about how special it was that the video that came out. I think it was a video or picture somebody released of you out on the field after the game, gathering up some of the field clay, and wasn't that you and putting it in a
Yeah, yeah. There's a
yeah
few of us out there.
yeah.
Yeah, it was special. I mean, it was when we were in Georgia, and we Eli caught that last ball. Like I almost like broke. Like I kind of went to a squat and like almost just like broke down like crying like in
That's
Georgia
what
because it
Cal
was
did
like
too.
dang.
Cal did the
Like
same thing.
I've been so close. Like but then it was like everyone was dog pounding. It's like, oh, I gotta run over here. Like then it was like the excitement. But it was like a weight came off of like my chest. Like dang man, we've been so close. And it was like it was just like everything. It was like a dream. Like I couldn't even believe it. Like I still couldn't even believe it when we got there. Like there was still a dream there. Like you watch it on TV and it's like you finally get there. And like and then all the cameras and stuff, like there's so much more media attention there, like in your face. So like luckily, like I was able to, focus like during the games, but there was a lot of distractions and like hype, and it really is about the players there, because there's a lot of fans for every team there, but like the whole Omaha experience was like, it was just like, it was almost like you were like, if you ever heard of Cooperstown, like kind of like that. It's just like all the teams, you see everybody walking around, and like everyone's enjoying it, because you know how hard it was to get there, but everyone still wants to win the whole thing, but it's hard. Like
College
it's a
baseball.
tough game. It's a team.
Yeah,
It's a big team sport. Like, it's never gonna come down to one person.
I don't know the number. You might know it or might have heard it, but it's a pretty daggone short list of kids that have hit it out of TD Ameritrade Park from both sides of the plate. So you'll always have your name on that
Yeah,
short
yeah,
list.
yeah. I think I want to say I'm the second person
Okay, I was gonna say I
to
never even heard, but it can't be many because it's so hard to get it
and
out of there in any way.
yeah, the wind was blowing, because we played the two morning game, or like early
The early
afternoon games,
games.
and the wind was blowing in. I know in the mornings from right to left. So yeah, it was even tougher then. I don't know how it is every year, if the wind's always like that, but yeah, and it's a big park, so you really gotta get it, because I think in both the videos I watch them, over and over again, my swings, and like I'm running out of the box because I was like, I have no clue if this ball's getting out, but I know I hit it good.
I
Yeah.
was going to ask
Um,
you that. College baseball is so dang good. I never wanted to leave Omaha. I thought about just buying a house while I was out there and staying, but it's probably pretty cold there right now. But I was going to ask you that because I know in Georgia, I mean, the ball is just flying out. You guys are just, not saying you weren't hitting them good, but I mean, there was balls that like were hit, and I was like, "Is that gone?" And it's like over the scoreboard. I'm like, "Holy cow!" Those
it
two
feels like
balls
the
you
bat.
hit, those two balls you hit in Omaha, like where did those things land in Athens? Like the ball you
I,
hit
I
out, I
I don't
think it was
know.
against Kentucky. Was that the ball from the left side? I mean, it
The
was
one
just,
from left, yeah, left side was Kentucky.
it was just absolutely like like if you got to be there to kind of appreciate it, but you feel that wind. Like I knew it was gone when you hit it, but like you said, I also knew, like we all remember Trey Turner hitting one against UCLA that like off the bat, if you're watching on TV, you're like, he hit that
It's
thing to
crazy.
Cleveland and it's like F7. Like, how good did you get the ball against Kentucky?
So that was actually, I think, one of the first fastballs he threw me, because he was at around 100 pitches that at bat in the seventh, and we were down to runner on first, and I was like, all right, like he's been throwing changeups all day, like I think he just thought he was gonna blow one by me, and so it helped. It helped that it was a 94 fastball in, and I hit it low enough, because it's a big stadium, where I feel like the wind didn't catch it right off the bat, so it kind of stayed low, and then I think it kind of just took off halfway into the outfield, and the wind, once it got up high enough, the wind, it was too late for the wind to kill it.
What does
So
that
that's that's kind of what I, in my mind, how it got out.
what does that feel like when you're stepping on first? We'll never know.
I typically black. You hear a lot of hitters. They say they black out, and yeah, that was definitely a moment for me where you kind of black out, but then you're like, make sure you touch every base.
Yeah.
You're just like, that's, and then I scream all the time. I don't remember half the stuff I scream running around the bases, like let's go,
Gosh.
yeah.
That was
So yeah,
insane. All right, back to the NIL thing. I wanted to ask you this. So we've been big advocates for NIL, not because like we want all our guys driving Beamers and having $50,000 gold pieces on their neck. But now that you're out of college, uh, I know you know a lot of guys in pro ball. You play with a lot of guys that obviously NIL is an opportunity for guys now that it's never been. Even early in your career, like what does that change look like? And like you said earlier, you didn't get a lot of money to come to NC State or anything, but you went from a guy your freshman year, I believe that's like pre NIL, right? Um,
yeah. That was the, I think, the last year before.
like I remember being a freshman at a Division II school, sitting in a meeting about like you can't get hitting lessons or anything. You can't go to McDonald's with
Yeah,
with
people
a
can't
family.
like pay for your meals,
Yeah.
or stuff like that.
So and then you go to where like obviously Tommy White's a name that Oh God, I said it. It might be the first time his name's ever been said on this podcast. I apologize, Wesley. Now, but you know, obviously got a boatload of money to go to LSU. Whatever. Um, Going forward, because we're all in. We're three guys that are all in on baseball. Like, how has that changed recruiting? How has that changed opportunities for players? I'll be the first one to tell you. When the NCAA is like collecting their billions of dollars, during March Madness, and you got coaches. That guy over in Chapel Hill now, they're paying $10 million to coach football. Like, for me, for a kid not to even be able to go give some hitting lessons or have a booster buy him a dinner, that's ridiculous. So we're not like anti NIL guys. But what do you think that looks like down the road? Like, what do you think? Like, what does it do from like a competitive edge standpoint?
I feel like there should be. I don't know. This is just my take. Like the bigger conferences, so it makes it like. I feel like it'll make it a little more competitive. If you make like those massive, you know, power conferences, with NIL at least, because I don't know. It's a tough subject because you could go so many different ways with it. Because everyone says it's like you're basically a professional now. I think that you like some of these kids might. I mean, they have to go to school still. I don't know if eventually they're just gonna be like, you're signing these big contracts. Like, I don't even know if you gotta go to school. Like, I mean, really, if they don't want to. Like,
You're
I
just
mean,
an
I feel
just
like
an employee. Yeah.
I feel like there's no predicting it at this point with like how it hasn't been like. There's like no restrictions. Like, I feel like it's just like crazy. It's like the Wild West out there. Like, there's
Yeah,
literally
what
there's like no rules. Like,
I've been kind of wondering what happens to the $4 million quarterback that fails his physics test or his physics class. Like
yeah, like
do
you're
you
paying
do you
$6
call the
million.
booster? You call the booster and say, "Sorry, he failed his physics class. He's not playing in the playoff."
Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like it could just turn into like another minor league system or something. Um, because like with the amount of money that's being spent, like they're not gonna risk it on whether this kid's gonna pass his classes. I feel like.
I think you're exactly right,
Well,
Amen.
yeah, and I think on those, like the example of football and the money there is, you talk about $4 million. I saw the stat that said that there was 9 quarterbacks in the NFL making less than that this year. Um, which is crazy. But then, at the same time, you've got the shortened draft on the MLB side too that has kept kids and obviously, hey, Matt, you're probably a product of that. Kept kids in school longer. And maybe that creates more opportunity for them to stay in school and selfishly for us, makes college baseball better, keeping kids in school potentially longer for that reason. So
Yeah, I mean, I think this year's draft was less like kind of like you said. Like, there was less high schoolers signing. I would assume it's because if they were only going to play professional for money, then they're just gonna go to college and do NIL for 4 or 5 years, and then if they still get offered a deal, like then they want to play pro ball, they'll take it. I mean, so and they got a degree. So I mean, there's a lot of different ways you could go with it.
well, I think to hear Coach Avent talk about it. Were you at the baseball dinner that they had last January?
Yeah, we got a picture
Yeah,
with
you
him,
were there.
Adam.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, you
yeah,
were
the
there. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
where we
in
introduced
Denver.
him and said, you know
yeah,
what? We're
yeah.
the
That's
best
right.
school in this state. We're going to Omaha this year. We appreciate you joining us.
But I mean, to hear Coach Avent talk about, what his dreams were for NIL, I think is super admirable. Trying to raise enough money to put everybody on scholarship, to have, he gave an example, of kids that live too far away. They had to be there, whatever early
Hmm.
morning for lift sessions but couldn't afford to, didn't have the money to live on campus and were driving, commuting back and forth or whatever. And I think to hear what his goals for that were, that's a great story, and I think a great
Yeah,
selling point, right? To
yeah,
get
for sure.
to you got kids there that are paying to wear the uniform, right? And so,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think Avent has a good perspective on NIL where like he wants kids to earn it. So like some of the guys that were on some NIL, like the group we had, would go, because like we didn't have like the whole team, but we would go and work at West Raleigh, for a little over an hour, and we did that, once a month, and then and it really was, and we weren't even really getting paid a ton of money to do it, but like I'm sure, I don't know, I've heard stories at other schools, like from just people I talk to, like some kids don't even do something to get their NIL, which was the original rule. Like you had to sign an autograph, like do something. So I'm sure some kids were getting paid and not even actually doing any service. But Avon also is like a professional empathizer. I talked to Gilio about it, like you said, he wants to use it to just help players that need help. Like not everyone's fortunate enough to have support from their families and stuff in college, and it's not. I'm not saying that anyone didn't have support, anyone else that I know of on the team, but everyone's situation is different, and he just wants to take care of the kids that might not be able to afford rent, or like you said, live far away and they're commuting, or stuff like that. It's not, he wasn't really using it to go reach out for just the best prospect. Like he's trying to take care of all his players, and keep everybody happy.
Yeah.
Hey, Mac,
That says,
I'm talking. Go ahead, Adam.
no, I just said that says a lot about his, I think that speaks a lot of his character and the culture that he has at
Yeah.
NC State.
Yeah, I don't think he wants to also recruit a player if they ask him like what the deal is. Like I didn't go in there and once I committed asking, or before I had signed, like asking for NIL. Like I didn't even bring it up. I just let them bring it up if they were going to bring anything up, because I don't know the rules either on that stuff. So I would assume that they followed the rules. I don't know, like, I mean, I think the university has like their collectives and stuff. So they figure it out with you. So yeah.
Yeah, if you make it to the big leagues, me, Adam, and Wesley are going to be calling you for money. So you better be ready. I got your number now. We need the AMAC NIL. We can't get Trey and Carlos to return our calls yet, but we're we're working on it. I'm sure those guys are supporting the program. They're big Wolfpackers. We love them. But talking about, and then we'll if these guys have any more questions before we let you go, we won't keep you all night. But talking about working at West Riley, I told you my son came to camp this summer, and you worked the summer camp for NC State, and my son just thinks you're Shohei Ohtani. He just loved being around you. Definitely appreciate that and what you did, and some other Wolfpack guys. You and Sam Highfield, I think, were probably the ones Carson was so drawn to. But after baseball, do you see yourself, or after professional baseball, do you maybe have a desire to coach one day? Is that something that maybe weighs on your heart?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because like I grew up around baseball and like my whole life, so it's ingrained in my head, and I enjoy watching. I really enjoy watching somebody else like go through like the struggle, and then figuring things out, and like becoming a great player. So like I would definitely want to be a part of that. I don't know what level I would want to coach at. I'm pretty open with that. But yeah, it's definitely something that I was considering if I didn't sign professionally, because I really didn't have anything lined up. Because I just figured the draft would work out and stuff, like it better after that year. But yeah, I'm definitely interested in coaching, college, high school. Right now I'm working with kids in Greenville, when I got some time, when I'm not training, to make some money. So, and I honestly, like, it's so fun for me. The more kids that I work with, it makes me want to coach more, because the excitement and happiness that they get, and then you see them, they want to start dreaming about being in your shoes one day. It's special.
Adam and Wes, anything for AMAC before we?
No, I was just going to say, Mac,
What
go ahead. Go ahead, Wes.
one sleeper from an offensive standpoint, AMAC on the roster that maybe most people wouldn't know for this upcoming season.
I think there's a few.
Just to keep an eye on. Well, hey, we're good for a few. Yeah.
I think I feel like I know Drew Lamphere is gonna have some good ABs. The more ABs he gets, I've seen the way he goes about his business. But someone that I haven't seen a ton of. Oof. I mean, I feel like I have to go with the kid from my tie head from my district because he's got to represent
Look at them Florida
the
men looking
Orlando High
out.
School district. I feel like it's slept on. Some of the kids that come out of that district it's a hot spot for professional players and college players.
I wanted to
I
ask
like
you
it.
one question too, Amac, about your defense. We all we talked about is all these numbers, and me and you were texting earlier this week, and I was like, "Hell, we were pretty excited to get you to play third base. We would have took 280 and lock it down over on the third base side. You're playing first base right now in pro ball. I think you played more games at first, I guess,
Yes,
than
yeah.
third. But is that something? I mean, I know that's kind of a natural progression for some guys. They go from corner to corner, but defensively, I mean, I feel like you got to be a guy that really enjoys that aspect of the game to has been as good a defender as you were in college.
Yeah, because like it kind of goes back to high school. Like I kind of just played every position. So like people are oh you playing first, like are you comfortable with that? Well, that's how I made varsity my sophomore year of high school. Was I switched over to first, even though I was like a second baseman, short outfield. Like I was a little guy until I was a late bloomer, so until my junior year. So like I've picked some balls and done it before and worked on it a little bit at ECU, but never played the game there at ECU. But I just like worked on it. I remember one time just in case somebody went down. So yeah, like I played every position from high school. I feel like our high school coaches don't get enough credit. When I hear all these college coach interviews, they don't ever really kind of shout out, "Hey, this kid was doing great, making great plays in high school before he got here." So, I feel like you shout out to Coach Entrican Doyle for hitting us all those fungos in high school. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I played more games at first in Kannapolis. I feel like every situation's different. Like, if they tell me to go play there, I'm gonna play there just because I enjoy baseball. Like, and I want to play as long as I can. So, eventually I might go back to third, and I don't even know where I'm gonna start, what affiliate or where I'll be at this year. So you kind of just go where they tell you to go, and just try to get better every day.
Adam,
Well, I was a little disappointed in when I was looking up AMAC about Kannapolis. I did not realize that they had dropped the Intimidators name. Uh,
Oh,
I grew up a Dale Earnhardt fan, and the Kannapolis Intimidators. I thought that was such a great minor league name, and then I'm looking it up, and I'm like, surely they don't have two teams, in
oh,
Kannapolis. And anyway, so I realized it was like 3 or 4 or 5 years ago that they dropped the Intimidators name and the Cannonballers, right?
yep,
Uh,
Cannonballers. There's still some older folks representing
the
the
Intimidators,
Intimidators jerseys at our games. I've
yeah,
seen them.
that's awesome. Yeah,
I
no,
saw them out there.
I was just gonna say, hey Mac, I would just I appreciate the you winding up at NC State and what you meant to that team this past year, and I think you were single-handedly the biggest part of us making it as far as we did, and just from a fan standpoint and watching the story of you moving and looking for the best opportunity for you, and it worked out great for both of us. I think it was awesome to have you as part of the Wolfpack Nation, and we hope to see you around, and really appreciate you winding up in Raleigh.
Thanks, Adam. I appreciate you
Absolutely.
saying all that stuff. I wish I would have had more eligibility.
Yeah, well,
amen.
that too.
As do
Yeah,
we.
yeah,
Amen. We take you back.
yeah.
Well, Amac, I appreciate you taking an hour with us. Wish you the absolute very best, and hope to see you around the Doak for a long time. After your
Yeah,
pro
yeah,
career, of course.
Yeah.
yeah. Hopefully, I can get up to an early game before I head out.
Yes, sir. All right. Thanks for coming on. We'll chat soon and go Pack.